Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw a sports car. Now the first thing you've probably noticed is that the paper is not white. It's kind of a gray color. I've done that on purpose for some coloring effects that I want to do later on. But let's begin with some basic guidelines. I've got a couple of squares here, about 3 inches by 3 inches on all sides. It doesn't have to be that size. You can make it larger or smaller, just as long as they're perfect squares. And then I got another line over here that is, I would say, a little more than a third of the width of one of these squares. This is going to be where the tip of the hood comes in. Anyway, I want to put down some basic guidelines that are going to allow me to draw the tires. Oddly enough, that's how we're going to begin this drawing. Let's go ahead and get into it. Before I continue, I thought I'd just sort of talk about what these lines signify. This is going to be the top, this line is for the top of each tire, this one is for the bottom of each tire, and they are in sort of perspective leading off to some vanishing point there in the distance. Now I'm going to add a couple of more lines to sort of define the edges of both of the tires, and then maybe I can go ahead and just get into drawing the tires themselves. Okay, so you can see we have a rectangle, a very narrow rectangle here. This is going to be for the rear tire. And what I'm going to do is take this middle line here from this one square, extend it just a little so that we have another rectangle right here. And I'm going to begin doing this in real time, but we may kick it into time lapse for some of the, for continuing the back tire. But I'm going to show you how you can use this rectangle to guide you towards drawing an oval shape of the tire that is maybe a little more perfect than it would be if you didn't have that square there to guide you. Really what I'm doing is using the edges of the square, certainly the middle of each one, as this is where the line should touch that rectangle. And oddly enough, how paradoxical, a square allows me to draw a circle. But it really does help, especially when you want to draw a circle in perspective to get that rectangle there in place to begin with. In time-lapse, I'll go ahead and do the second tire. Alright, so we've got the two tires in place. Again, I don't know if these are perfect ovals, and I may have to tweak it as time goes by in the illustration, but at least we've got a good start. I'm going to add a couple of more guidelines. Drawing a car in 3 dimensions is really quite tricky, and it's going to require a number of guidelines any way you do it, but I'm trying to create a sort of a shortcut method of getting a good result with a minimum of guidelines, believe it or not. And I'm going to go ahead and do 2 more, and hopefully that'll be it, and we can get into the real-time drawing. Okay, so this line that I just added is going to help me place the side mirrors later on. And then this line here, a little arbitrary, but it helps me find a sort of a joint in the front of the car where different lines will come together. But let's go ahead and start drawing the side of the car, beginning with this tire. Now, one thing that I noticed is that from this point of view, you end up with a gap here just above the tire, the sort of edge of the car, and you can sort of see through into, not the interior of the car, but whatever that area is back there behind the tire. And I'm going to go ahead and just sort of erase, even after all the trouble that I went to of drawing that oval, because it does get partially obscured by the front of the car here. And I'll go ahead and have this line come down to around here, and that later on that's going to lead into the whole front of the car. But let's continue and do the same thing over here with this other tire. Now, one thing that really surprised me as I studied the photographs of several different sports cars that were in this basic position. Pose? I wanted to say pose. Does the car strike a pose? But anyway, it's a sort of a 3/4 view. One thing that surprised me is that the back end of the car is not super visible on the page. In fact, I saw a number of car models in which you basically have the line of the back of the car just lining right up with that rear tire from this point of view. Of course, if you saw it from the side in profile, it wouldn't look like that, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, this is giving us the back, the boot, the bonnet, the back trunk of the car, and I'm going to go ahead and get in a sort of loose guideline here for the bottom line of the car, and you are sort of keeping in mind the perspective here as you do this. Some of the car models that I saw, they were very straight as they came along the bottom here, but then they would maybe curve just a little prior to getting to this section at the back of the car. Now that once we've got that in place, I think we can go ahead and start indicating the full width of the tire. So we get that in place there. It looks a little thick to me, but why not? I'm giving it, this is a sports car. I need thick tires so it can really rip up the road, man. Anyway, if you have a width up here, you probably have to trim, I'm realizing now, to keep it in proper perspective. This tire, appearing larger because it's closer to us. Anywho, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on here. Let's see if we can get the car door in place. A curving line, again, only from this perspective are you going to have this curving line of the door, because it curves out just a little bit. And again, different models. People may ask, what car model is this? Well, it's sort of an imaginary car model that I've come up with by combining. As I said, I studied 3 or 4 different types of sports car, photographs of them, and decided, rather than copying any one of them, to sort of combine them into a fantasy vehicle of my own creation. One cool thing that I saw on a couple of the models was, it must be sort of like a ventilation system thing here, but at the back of the car door, there was this cool little, almost looks like gills on a fish or something, this little... And those of you who know more about cars, you will know the name of this and you will know what it's there for. Is it cooling things down in the back? I'm not sure, but I saw a couple of sports car models that had some sort of gill-like thing back here. Now that we've got that in place, maybe we should start thinking about drawing the front of the car. And like I said, we came over here and created a line that showed me where the outer edge of it was going to come to a stop. I felt that was pretty important to know how far forward that was going to come. And then let's try to make a sweeping line that comes here and connects. And you can look at this first square that you made, and this just right here at the edge, sort of luckily, that gives you a guideline as to where that line is going to come forward and eventually join with the line at the front of the car. Drawing cars is tricky business. A lot of people may watch this video and say, hey man, you're not teaching us how to draw cars in general. You're only teaching us how to draw one particular car from one particular point of view. To which I say, guilty as charged. But the truth is, a video that really shows you how to sort of construct a car in 3 dimensions within your imagination and transpose that to the page, that's a tall order. That's a tough video to do. And who knows, maybe someday I can do it, but for now, I'm doing this sort of shortcut version. Anyway, I'm going to come over here just above this, where the tire meets the car, and create a curving line, again, using some of these things as guidelines. Notice how the line comes very near to this intersection here, and then it's going to curve like so, and come all the way around the front of the car to create the, I guess, the front bumper. Although it doesn't really have a bumper. It's really just the front of the hood of the car. And you may recall that I talked about creating a line that was going to define a certain joint in the front of the car. And this indeed creates that line for me. See right here where this curved line that I created crosses that line. That tells me where to begin this sort of curving line of the front of the hood. Helps me sort of define that, and that's going to curve back toward this line at the top of the door. Tricky stuff, people. Hats off to anyone who can draw cars like this, in any direction from a variety of views. You really do need to have a great understanding of the structure, from the axles on up. And that is something that I do not have as knowledge. I have not memorized the structure of a car, but who knows? If this video is popular and people want to see more of them, I can kick my studies up a notch and try to reach the point where I can do that. Anyway, this curving line here is the bottom of the windshield, and maybe we can start to get into drawing the windshield. How about if we do this? We got the two squares here at the top, and part of the reason that I put them there was to tell myself where the top of the car was going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a curved line that touches those two. And if you look at where this line begins to reach that, again, that same line of that little joint there, just before it reaches that line, just before, is where it's going to cut down and rejoin the car to sort of create where the hood is going to be. Now, as for the other side of that windshield, I'm going to come all the way over here. I'm going to look at where the door is, and that's where it's going to come up and rejoin. Again, different models of cars are going to have different, structures. Even of the 3 or 4 cars that I looked at, they had different ways, different shapes of the windshield coming together in different ways. So, the perspective, when we come to the side window, and there's really just one window, this is going to be a car that only has 2 seats. A 2-seater, I believe we call them in the business. The perspective causes this to be quite small, to appear quite small. If you saw it from the side, I'm sure it would be wider from front to back or whatever. But anyway, this line comes back here and rejoins with the rear of the car. And that really takes us a considerable distance towards finishing the contours of this car. I was surprised to find that the front tire, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the ruler here, because there's going to be a little bit of perspective to this. Even though I drew it straight there, I'm going to sort of change that line a little bit, give it some perspective. I always think of that guy from Ratatouille when I say the word perspective. I'd like some perspective. But I'm going to erase there. And then this, so this perspective line here allows me to figure out where that other tire is going to be. And what I was surprised to find is that this second tire is largely obscured. In fact, in a lot of photographs seen from this point of view, I saw nothing at all over there. Yeah, you're not seeing very much of that far tire. And of course, the other rear tire is completely obscured. You don't end up drawing that at all. But just a little bit of it sort of peeking out over here. I think what I'll do now is to draw the side mirrors. And I told you that this line up here was going to help me understand where to place those side mirrors. Again, lots of different shapes, lots of different designs when it comes to side mirrors. I sort of came up with a random, slightly curved, egg-shaped design. And so that line up there does help me sort of place that. And then, of course, it's going to attach to the car door. That's one thing you might not necessarily think about, but the side mirror attaches to the car door, not to the front of the car, in most models, I'm pretty sure. And then this side mirror over here, again, touching that line, but a little smaller because it's a little farther away. And that's getting us a little closer to the point where we start getting into details. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll refocus the camera as we get into some of the details of the front of the car. Okay, so I'm going to start getting into drawing the headlights now, and I, for one, find that part of it kind of fun, coming up with the shape. One thing that is interesting for those of you who have seen the movie Cars, and it's very tempting for people to sort of see a face in the front of a car. And of course I didn't want to do that in this video because it seems silly, to draw a face on the front of the car. But there is something about the headlights and the grille, if you choose to put a grille, and I have decided to have one in the front, that it does start to sort of resemble a face, whether you want to or not. These headlights combined with the grille do sort of look like eyes and a mouth. But anyway, I would encourage you to have fun and come up with your own design. I've come up with this sort of, almond shape, seed-like shape for the headlights of my car. And what I'm going to do here is see where that line, these two lines come down and cross this curving front line. I'm going to bring this down fairly straight, like so. And I'm going to create a secondary line here that, the actual hood structure is going to probably come to an end a little higher up maybe than what I had originally had. And then there's, I think, a secondary sort of under hood-ish structure that is going to be very dark and not part of the colored, enameled, whatever you call it, part of the body of the car. Anyway. I'm going to come down here and do a secondary line that helps us understand where this grill is going to be. I hope I've got the right word there. Is it called the grill? Again, I can't help thinking that this part and that rear sort of gill thing that I was talking about are sort of related in terms of cooling the engine, drawing air into the car. I'm talking like I know what I'm educated on this stuff. Yeah, it's the coolant, you gotta have this grill for doing that thing to the engine. Anyway, once you've got this grill in place, and I may add more details to that later on, most cars will have parking lights down here in the front, a secondary set. And so that's what I'm going to do here is add on both sides here a sort of secondary parking light type of a thingamajiggeroony. And then we're kind of getting closer to being done with things. I suppose I can get a little bit into the details of the interiors of the lights. Some cars, that this whole thing is covered with glass, but some cars are designed in such a way that you can sort of see through that glass and see the interior structure of the lights. And so that's what I'm going to do, and depending on what type of car it is, there may be actually two. I wonder if one of them is for the brights and one is for just the standard headlights. But you will often see two different lights in there. And then because of the perspective, this sort of cuts back, and you're not going to see quite so much back here, I don't think. I'll go ahead and do the details of the grill. Why not? Huh? Why not? Throw caution to the wind. Crilly, you're too uptight, man. Live a little. Draw that grill. You feel like drawing that grill, just go ahead and do it, man. So I'm dividing it into four sort of structural sections and going across with some horizontal lines to kind of finish that off. I should say that I'm going to do this video in two parts. This video is all about the lines, and then I'm going to do a second video that is about the coloring. Of course, if you have missed it and you feel like this video alone is too long, there is going to be, as almost always there is for my videos, an entirely time-lapsed version that is only about 2 minutes long. You can see the whole thing. And, people live busy lives, and I don't expect all of you to necessarily be able to watch 20 or 30 minutes of a video. That's why I always try to do a time-lapsed version for people on the go. Anyway, so I think we've got the parking lights up here. I guess I'll just say that if you want to know where to put some kind of a hood ornament or something like that, you may want to divide this section just with a basic guideline, imagining the actual center. This line of the grill sort of helps me understand where that center line ought to be. And I would say that some sort of I don't know if it's hood ornament or just like an icon, the brand name or whatever of the car. That center line would allow you to place that. Then you can just go ahead and get rid of it once you've figured out where that's going to be. I'm going to do some very loose indications of windshield wipers. I don't want to call too much attention to the windshield wipers. Just sort of have that there, and I think we kind of have everything we need for the front of the car. Let's go ahead and refocus so that we can get into the details of the hubcaps. Okay, so one thing that surprised me as I looked at these cars and studied the way the tires look is that the hubcaps are quite large, maybe larger than I imagined them to be anyway. They fill up quite a large percentage of the sort of territory of the side of the wheel. So if you look at this drawing, you're like, dude, you're making the hubcaps way too big. I would encourage you to look at some photographs, as I did. And you may be surprised, just as I was, that depending on the type of car, the tire ends up being kind of a small sliver on the edge, and that the hubcap can fill up quite a lot of this area. Now, I'm doing this in a pretty rough, sketchy way. I'm probably going to come in later on and ink all of this. But one thing to keep in mind, depending on the design of the hubcap, the sort of center of the hubcap may actually be a little closer to one side because it's recessed just a little bit. And I've decided, you know, there's so many different types of hubcap designs. I've decided to go for a 5-pronged pentagonal, is that a word? Pentagonal design. It's not really a pentagon, but it's got 5 sort of thick spokes that are coming off of it. Hey, it looks like a peace sign almost, doesn't it? And then that's basically the way I'm going to deal with this hubcap design, is just to have these 5 spokes. I may, when I do the inking, try to give it a little more detail, but it ends up looking a little bit like a star almost, doesn't it? And I'm continuing to try to refine that. Rather than bore you by going real time through me drawing that all over again, let's go ahead and do the rear tire end time lapse. Now, some hubcap designs will actually allow you to see other stuff back here. I'm going to try to keep things simple. This video is going to be long enough as it is, even split into 2 parts. So I'm just going to have kind of an area of blackness behind this pentagonal design. One thing we don't want to forget is to have some indication of the door handle. Otherwise, how are they going to get in this thing? Maybe they have keyless remote, boop, boop, and they never have to actually, but I'll go ahead and get a car handle in there. And, you know, there's probably going to be some amount of interior, seating and rear view mirror stuff that becomes visible, but I'm not going to concern myself too much with that. I'm going to have a lot of glare when I get into the coloring. That will allow me to sort of cheat in a way and not have to deal so much with that interior detail stuff. But I think we're almost ready to get into the inking stage. Going to do that all in time lapse. And yeah, as I said, that may end things for this video, and then we'll have a second video that covers the coloring as much as possible without time lapse. It's been a while since I did sort of a 2-part video like this. We'll see if people like it. Yeah, let's go ahead and ink this baby up. All right, well, that essentially does it for this video that's about the line work. I noticed there was a couple of things, a couple of grooves in this car door. I thought I would go ahead and get that in, again, starting with a little pencil to just sort of make sure it's in the right place, and then go in with ink. Yeah, we're going to definitely do a whole separate video that takes you through the coloring of this illustration, and as I hinted at the beginning of the video, this gray paper is going to allow us to do some pretty interesting stuff when it comes to adding color to this. I hope you will stay tuned and continue on to that next video. I'll definitely have a link in the info box, and, you know, probably pop one here bottom into the video if you want to go right on to the coloring version of this. But for now, let me go ahead and thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books. We got Brody's Ghost and Miki Falls, both of those graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2, my How to Draw books. And what do we have here? Yes, it's Dessiner des Mangas. Do you pronounce the S in French, or is it Dessiner des Mangas? I'm not really sure. Help me out there, French people. I do appreciate anyone who supports me by getting any version of any of my books, but let me go ahead and lay down this pen. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll be back with another one real soon.